Thank you very much. Just before I go into questions, a little bit about a month ago, I was called over to the Japanese embassy, and I was asked to provide the toast to Japanese-American friendship, and I think it was the Emperor's birthday or something like that. And I did that, and I felt real good about it, and I knew my father would approve. My father was a United States Marine in World War II. And how ironic that his son is at the Japanese embassy providing a toast to the friendship between the Japanese people and the people of the United States. There's a lot of blood there, a lot of bloodshed in that relationship. Not only U.S. Marines being killed, but hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians being evaporated by our bombing, which was done in order to end that war, I understand. But it seems to me that today Japan and the United States have a wonderfully close friendship, and we've had that for decades. And it's so difficult for me to see two people who are separated by their Christian religion not being able to come to have a greater peace than they have in Northern Ireland. Let me ask you, and by the way—
Can I say one thing?
Yes, go right ahead.
And I apologize for interrupting. What's interesting to me, though, about what you said, well, two things. One is, one of the things we've called for in this report is not simply apologies, but acknowledgments, that people talk about their responsibility and role in the past. Honesty will go a long way in Northern Ireland. The more honesty there is and people accepting personal responsibility, that kind of personal gesture, I believe, will have extraordinary impact. When we've seen it already, it's had extraordinary impact. The other thing that came to mind, what you were saying—
But before you go on to your second point, I agree with you 100% in that I think that acknowledging one's faults, for that to have a positive result, also has to have forgiveness. I mean, that's the other half of the equation. That's what Christ talks to us. You're supposed to talk to us Christians about. And excuse me for go ahead.
The other thing, and I know before you were raising the question of some of the dangers or risks, if you will, of too much of a focus on the past, but take another analogy from Asia. You used the one of the United States and Japan, but you know this as well as I do. Look at the Japanese-Korean relationship and the Japanese-Chinese relationship. They are increasingly held back, doesn't begin to get at it, poisoned might not be too strong of a word, by the legacy of the past. And the fact that you have totally different perceptions and takes on the past, you teach a different way in the schools, and it's both impressive and depressing how much of the current diplomacy is affected and limited by their different perceptions of the past. So again, to me, that's a lesson about why sometimes you do need to deal with the past before you can effectively deal with the future.
That is a very good point. Let me ask you something about your knowledge. And first of all, thank you for the wonderful work you've dedicated your life to, and it's something that is so admirable. The type of what you were expending your energy, your intellect, and your time of your life being a peacemaker. As I say, blessed are the peacemakers, etc. And that's why we're so proud to work with Chairman Smith, because he's dedicated his life to these type of things as well. Let me ask you about Ireland. Has there been any evidence that Protestants have been discriminated against in Southern Ireland, in the regular part of Ireland?
In the Republic of Ireland?
Yes.
I simply am not, I don't know the answer to that question about the state of Irish society. I've never heard of that recently.
Yeah. I've never heard about it.
I mean, the population of Ireland is also, I think, my numbers could be off here, but it's upwards of 97, 98% Catholic. All I can say is I've not heard reports of that, but I could be, I'm certainly uninformed, and I could always be misinformed.
I think there was a lot of arguments when Ireland was separating from British domination that the Protestants, there would be retaliation against the Protestants. And I didn't see it. I mean, I've studied I love Ireland. I love the history and the culture, the music, and the beer. And I just love Ireland, and I've studied a lot about it. And I didn't see any repercussions against Protestants when the British left. Now, I will say this: I personally believe the issue that we're talking about today would not exist had the British not snookered the Irish into the original agreement to give up those 5 counties. The bottom of the line is Ireland is Ireland, and they're all Irish. And had that not, we wouldn't be facing this right now. And it's 6 counties. Pardon me. Maybe I'll leave the British with 1. But the fact is that perhaps today, perhaps the real solution lies, and from what I understand, there's only 1 county that has a very big majority of Protestants over Catholics. Maybe if we had let these people have their right to self-determination via each county voting on it, might lead to a restructuring of the whole system there, which might lead to a little better feelings after a period of time when people have to live together. That's just a thought. But let's get to the question now. And the question is this. The Good Friday agreements happened in 1998.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you believe, now, that's 25 years ago.
15, 16 years.
Is it? Oh, yeah, come right. Okay. It's 15 years ago. 15 years ago. And I have 16, so it's been 16 years since the violence stopped.
For the most part.
Okay. During that time period, I don't see anything wrong with people saying anyone held accountable for any acts of violence during this time when there was an official peace and the people were negotiating. I can understand that. But going back beyond that 16 years, pardon my mathematical equation there, was wrong, but 16 years of peace, before that, we just heard the Baroness talking about maybe giving people 2 years in prison for someone who was maybe in their 20s when something happened, or 30s. Is that part of the plan for peace?
Well, again, 2 separate issues. One is the ability to prosecute, and the other is the question of what would be the penalty for those found guilty. I believe, again, and Mr. Keating and I had this exchange, that I believe for democratic societies there needs to be the ability to prosecute for crimes for which there's no statute of limitations. I think that's true from a political and legal point of view. I also came away from my experience here thinking that it's necessary politically and psychologically. That, again, for people to be open to a future, they've got to feel that the past has been fairly and comprehensively dealt with. And I don't believe that should be something, by the way, that individuals have the right.
I don't know. I wish I could tell you that I believe in what you're saying, because I know that that's the theory that we can believe, something we can believe in, right, that will create a better world. But again, my father was a Marine in World War II. A member of our church, who was my father's best friend, called me aside one Sunday and said, you know, I was in Guam, and we went out after the Japanese had surrendered, and there were little groups out there, and we surrounded a group of 13 of them, or 13, 14 of these Japanese, around a campfire one night, and we had a Japanese speaker with us, and we came out and we said, hands up, surrender, and they all did, and one of our guys just started shooting, then we all started shooting, and we killed all of them. Now, that was an atrocity. And during the Battle of the Bulge, there's another case where I know of where our soldiers actually killed a lot of German soldiers, knowing full well the Germans were killing our soldiers, however. It seems that, hey, if we're going to have a better world, we got to recognize that those things are evil, and that evil does lurk among humankind, but that if we try to go back, I don't think it would be fair to that Marine to go back and then to charge him with a war crime. Did you?
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable commenting upon other situations? Because I
Yes.
know enough to know that every situation stands on its own and is different and unique. I would simply say, though, one of the things you have to think about in the case of Northern Ireland is you're not thinking about two different countries. You're talking about a society that we want to be commingled, which is not divided. And again, I don't believe it's realistic to think that you will have a unified society if you have someone across the street living from someone else, and people know that this individual was involved in certain activities and that they lost a loved one because of it. I think you're expecting too much from human nature to think that people can get beyond that kind of an experience. And again, we may just simply disagree here. I'm not sure it's healthy for society to do that. I do think there has to be a sense of accountability and responsibility. Now, what Northern Ireland has tried to do is put certain ceilings in many cases on the jail penalty and time that individuals would have to serve. And I don't want to speak for anybody there, but my sense is that's the way they've tried to compromise this, to basically have prosecution continue where it's warranted, but also to have a degree of mercy, if you will, or limits on the penalties that would be incurred by individuals who committed crimes during the periods of the so-called Troubles. As you say, it's different after 1998. So I think that's been the balancing act, if you will, that people in Northern Ireland have, and more broadly, have come up with there.
Well, thank you very much. And I know I sound a little bit too idealistic here, maybe, but I do think that forgiveness, if someone really has contrition, forgiveness goes a long way towards creating more peace in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for